Hello and welcome to the Intergenerational Solidarity Series, a podcast brought to you by Civic Voice, Inuka Kenya ni Sisi, and The Elephant. I'm Darius Okola, and this is episode 3 of the podcast series about a national dissent that has come to collectively be known as the Gen Z movement. And joining me today is a human rights defender, a lawyer, but most importantly, a senior citizen of this country who has been through all the series and all the waves and movements in the country to share with us what are his insights into where the Gen Zs can go with this, what he makes of this, and what the constituent players in the current dispensation have to do to be able to provide a much more livable country. Karibu sana, Senior Counsel, Dr. Khaminwa.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gola, for inviting me to talk to you. I'm most grateful.
Yeah, and just starting on this conversation, one of the elements that stood out for me was the fact that we'd had our first liberation. We had a second liberation throughout the 80s going into the 90s, and this, in essence, is the third liberation. One of the key elements that stands out for me is that in all these waves and movements of what we call liberation, it's always been young people at the forefront of it, and they paid quite a price for it. And going back, I mean, where it starts with the first liberation, the cluster was fairly young who stood out. Is that a fair assessment?
Are you referring to the Mau Mau movement?
Yes.
Yes. The Mau Mau movement, I wouldn't say that they were absolutely young people. They were actually mixed. They were young, and there were also elderly people who participated in the liberation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and looking at some of the bigger players in it, Dedan Kimathi, 1920, Bildad Kagia, 1921, Mboya, 1930. He was your peer and your contemporary in a way. Yeah.
I knew Tom Mboya. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to have cups of tea with him. I usually think that is perhaps one of our most able politicians that the country has ever had. He was a very able politician, and he made significant contribution. It is a pity that he was assassinated. If he had not been assassinated, I do believe that he would have risen to a position of a president in the country.
Yeah.
Indeed, he deserved it.
Mm-hmm. And looking at, then we come into independence and the successes here and mistakes along the way, which necessitates the second liberation. And we watch the same elements sort of play out. And now we are watching what's happening with what is now called the Gen Z movement. And in a sense, we are back again and again to this dispensation where the unfulfilled elements of the previous liberation leads to another quest for liberation. What is your assessment of where the Gen Zs, what the Gen Zs rather did last year, and where do you think this would go in the near term?
Well, the Gen Zs, as I understood it, they were mainly participating in protests, open protests in town, demonstrating and so on. This was completely different from what had happened before. The first movement we had for Mau Mau was people trying to unseat the British, and they did so using violence. The second liberation was different. There was no violence at all, but I would say that we used the court system very much to fight for human rights in the country. And speeches were made here and there by people like Kitobu Manyara, Paul Mwite, Orengo, and etc. These were people who were mainly involved in the second liberation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And now looking at one of the elements that went into it is, and you've mentioned it, which is murder, basically. The disappearance of a lot of people. Last year, there were about 70 people who were murdered, and 29 are still, or thereabout, are still unaccounted for. and we still the same elements playing into this year. This is a heavy toll for the country. And as a senior citizen, you've seen this happen again and again successively. How does this nation make sense of the loss of its young like this within the bigger picture of trying to fight for a better country? How do we make sense of this?
Let me make it very clear to you. Mm-hmm. The young people had the right to go on to protest. That's their right. It's provided for in our constitution. So they were actually exercising their constitutional right. What they were doing was not wrong at all. But it's unfortunate that those in government mishandled these young people. They should not have done what they did at all. Kidnapping quite a number of them or abducting quite a number of them. And eventually we heard that they have been killed and so on. This was most unfortunate. On my part, I had the opportunity to represent some of them in court, and I have even a constitutional petition pending before the High Court, in which I'm representing Kituo Sharia, and I'm also representing Mathare Social Agency, in which we are urging the court, the High Court, to make an order that the abductions were unlawful, were illegal, and we do not think that they can fairly be handled in the country. It is better if they are referred to the ICC to investigate the matter, to find out who was really behind the killing of these young people.
Mm-hmm. And that will be a very valuable development for this particular movement.
Yes.
And just looking at it, you have represented over 1,000 pro bono cases over the last 6 or so decades. Mm-hmm. And what is the nature of these cases? Do they revolve around these kinds of elements? And have there been any particular sort of evolution in terms of the cases that come your way, or rather the kind of cases that you take over the years?
Thank you. That's a very good question. During the time of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and the time of Mzee Arap Moi, it was not easy to find a lawyer prepared to represent some people who are perceived to be anti-government or against the government. And I recall very vividly, my wife was a lawyer. We had a discussion in the family. What should be our approach? Should we be selective in whom we represent in courts? And we both came to the conclusion that that would be wrong. We should be prepared to represent anyone who comes to us who is looking for representation. So that a number of people whom we represented in courts, some of them found that actually they did not have any other lawyer prepared to volunteer to represent them at all. This happened, for instance, during the time of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. I remember one or two politicians who wanted to come to our office. And at that time, the offices were guarded. I think it was during Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, I forget quite clearly, or during the time of Arap Moi. And one was Andrew Gumba. He wanted to come and get some advice from us. And at that time, our officers were being, actually as it were, guarded by police officers. It is the police officers who were determining who should come into our office and who should not come. And I remember them telling Andrew Gumba that, what have you come for? And Andrew Gumba, who had been a mayor, or an outstanding mayor in Nairobi, he told them, look, I would like to meet lawyers working with Khaminwa and Khaminwa. I want some legal advice. And the policeman told him to go away. They told him that, look, go and look for some other lawyers. These are not the only lawyers in the country at all. Go and look for some other lawyers. So there was reluctance on the part of some lawyers to take up briefs to do with those who were not popular, to those who were in power. And that's how quite a number of people, we represent a number of people in courts. These included people like George Anyona. They included people like Mwangi Murithi Stephen. They included people like Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. I appeared for him several times in court. I recall I went even also handled matters relating to his son now, who is now prominent in court in the country, Raila Odinga. Remember, I went to see him at Manyani on several occasions before the security tribunal, and etc. That's how we came now to actually appear for a number of people who are not all that popular in the country at all. Yeah, and I mentioned further names of Luke Obok, Oneko, Martin Shikuku, Masinde Muliro, and many others. Yeah.
Yeah. And for this, your courage to stand up when a fair portion of your colleagues in the profession were not willing to do, that kind of courage came at a cost to you.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It did, very much so. It did. It more or less destroyed my family. I had a young family. My wife, Joyce, stood by me. I recall I would later learn that when I was first detained, for the 17 months I was in detention, she walked barefooted in the streets, in the courts, and etc. Before I was detained, many policemen raided my home in Karen, accompanied by dogs and so on. They alleged that I had some arms that I had hidden in somewhere in a wood near my house, and I wanted to cause a revolution in the country. Now, that was extremely untrue, because I belong to a religion, the Quaker religion and French religion, where we believe that killing people is wrong, is a sin, is criminal. And I have never owned a gun myself in my life. I don't know how to shoot, and there was no way I could have collected guns and kept them in my home in Karen. For what? And I am a great believer in constitutionalism. I believe that whatever we do, let us do it in accordance with the constitution of the country. Let us do it in accordance with the laws of the country. I'm not a believer in coup d'etats at all. I think they raised more problems than they sort out. It's better that a government is removed constitutionally, lawfully, and legally. So what they were trying to tell people that we were planning some kind of a coup or what and so on did not make any sense at all. Indeed, when I was immediately detained, after my immediate detention, I was taken to the prison at Kamiti, and in prison I was given a small room. I used to sleep on the floor, cement floor. and I had nothing, nobody to talk to. I had only 2 books to read. One was the Old Testament, and the other one was the Quran. Those are not very easy books to read at all. They are quite difficult books to read. But I did my best. I read them during that time I was in detention. Those are the books that I had. Although sometime towards the end of the detention, they allowed my wife to bring me some other books and novels to read and etc. Yes. So it was a difficult time. My wife had to work hard to make sure that she was able to look after the children, to feed them. And one thing I must say that which came as a very great surprise. I live in an area where there's quite a bit of crime. But during the time I was in detention, surprisingly, no criminal ever entered my home at all to harass my wife or to harass my family. That was quite a positive thing. It showed quite clearly that people were really opposed, were not happy with the way I was being treated at all.
Yeah, and I mean the essence of family, community, and relationships. I see a lot of wonderful people here who've been part of this journey, even as when you're doing the kind of public-facing work, and how critical have been the many people, including both family and the principals you mentioned, in providing you support and anchoring, even as you stood up. This is literally close to 5 governments later, and your convictions about the rule of law and justice and standing up for these young people is still as strong as ever.
Kenyans are very peaceful people. They are very friendly people. The only unfortunate thing is that I don't think that you have had the best crop of politicians. I think at the beginning, when we got independence, the politicians we had were actually determined to build a country which would be an example or show the British that the Africans can actually govern themselves very well. Although there were some shortcomings, but I think they did very well. We had some very good people in that government who wanted to see that things were done properly. Like the one I've just mentioned, Tom Mboya, and to some extent even Mzee Jomo Kenyatta himself. They were determined to build a decent society. And it's not surprising that 7 Kenyan shillings made $1 American. 13 Kenyan shillings made 1 British pound sterling. And I recall that the Britons, when they used to visit their country, including also the Americans, they would complain that why is Kenyan currency so strong? Kenyan currency was very strong. It was like $1 in Africa, in the whole of Central Africa and South Africa. It was very much respected and so on. These were decent people in my view. They wanted to see that we had a decent society, we had a decent government, and things were not all that bad at all. Of course, there were some detentions. There were some people who were detained during that time. People like Martin Shikuku was detained, and other people were also detained around that time. But I think that on the whole, one would say that the first government we had of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta had some decent people who really wanted to see that things were done properly and so on. I was in a way fortunate to serve that government also. I was one of the first black Africans to join the judiciary as deputy registrar. I served judiciary under Sir John Henry, who was then a white old man, as Chief Justice. I also served the country as a resident magistrate for Nairobi. Later on, through promotions, I was appointed as a deputy counsel to the East African community, in which Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and Dr. Milton Obote and Mwalimu Julius Nyerere were constituted the authority. They were happy years at that time. We all wanted to see that we were united as East Africans. And in fact, there was one time when we thought that we could probably have an East African Federation. But unfortunately, that did not happen at all. Yeah, there were some decent people in the first government that we had. The second government that of Mzee Arap Moi, a lot of things happened that they were unfortunate. A lot of young people were detained, and we had people, assassinations of Bob Dr. Wuko, who died, Brigadier Matu, who also died, and several other people who unfortunately were assassinated during that time. Of course, even during the time of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, there were assassinations, of people like Tom Mboya, C.M. Kariuki, and etc.
Yeah. Now coming to the space where we are at, 60 plus years, 5 successive regimes later, looking at the state of the country right now, would you say we've done a good job? Have we done justice to the many we lost along the way in trying to build the kind of country we are? And especially in light of the developments that we are seeing right now with what is essentially the last bonds of YK92, or, Youth for Kanu. How do we situate ourselves given the level of effort we put, especially 190, in trying to build a formidable country vis-a-vis where we are right now, especially both politically but also socio-economically?
What I would say is that as a country, we should try to maintain peace. We are living in a very competitive world, and Kenya as a country does not have natural resources of its own at all. We need peace in order to be able to attract investments. But on the other hand, there have been unfortunate incidents of murders which have taken place. Young people who have been killed, who should not have been killed at all. And as I told you, I'm handling a case where we are asking the High Court to refer these murders to ICC to investigate, to find out who really were behind the murders of these young people. There is a need, in my view, to have a new crop of politicians. The politicians we have are not probably the best crop that we should have at all. I think we can do much better. But let us do everything constitutionally. We should not go out and try to do something that is unconstitutional, like causing an army coup or mobilizing violence in order to get rid of those who are in power. Let us do everything in a very constitutional manner. This may mean that if we go on the way we are going, then it may be better that those who are in power at the moment should probably not go for a second term at all. It would be a good thing if they can emerge by showing people that they love Kenya, by making an announcement. For instance, it would be a good announcement if our present president, William Ruto, was making an announcement that, look, I'm going to concentrate on improving the country. but I would not stand for a second term. He would be emerged as a very strong president, and he will be sending good signals to everybody that what matters in the country is not the individual. What matters in the country is Kenya. And in Africa, he will not be the first person to make such an announcement. As you may be aware, President Mandela served only one term, and he emerged as a great president. And it may not be a bad thing if President William Ruto serves only one term, and at the end he tells people that, look, I've done my best, I'm handing over a government or a country that has improved economically, and let us support the new leaders, and we see how things are.
Yeah, which is interesting because speaking of constitutionalism, rather, what we are witnessing right now is, does the Constitution provide the mechanism for the kind of regime we have right now, with the opposition joining the government, and in a sense, we have no clear idea, and this did not start right now. We had it with the BBI coming to this on one hand, but also as a build-up to that, this is pretty much the most unpopular crop of politicians we've had in a while. And an interesting bit about that also is the fact that some of them are fairly young. How do you navigate this conundrum?
Actually, I'm very much impressed by you, Mr. Ogola. You know, you seem to be a very good student of constitutional law. I personally am in doubt that we can have a cabinet constituted in the way the current cabinet has been constituted. Because if you read the Constitution, Mr. Ogola, it says very clearly and emphasizes Kenya shall remain a multi-party state. That's emphasized. Kenya shall remain a multi-party state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you say that would mean that we have several parties and we have an opposition party? Currently, which party is opposition? We're playing an opposition role. It seems as if we don't have such a party at the moment at all. The Prime Minister's party, Raila Odinga, which would have formed in opposition in Parliament and elsewhere, is no longer opposition at all. It's really in government. So the country is left without, in my view, an opposition party. It seems as if we are now moving towards the old regime of a one-party state during the time of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and during the time of Mzee Arap Moi, which in my view is very, very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have an opposition party in Parliament and in the country. We do not appear now to have an opposition party in Parliament at all.
Yeah.
So we have gone one or two steps backwards.
Yeah. And one of the interesting elements that came out of the Gen Z movement, as we called it last year,
Mm-hmm.
was we began to see a few names of younger leaders trying to rise up from among the many who were in the streets. And one of the elements that has come out of that is they've been co-opted into the current political patronage networks in the country, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
In a sense, it almost akin to a betrayal of their peers who went to the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, to be fair to them, we do not have an alternative political mechanism, even an emerging one, where any young aspirational person who does not want to be part of the current patronage networks
Yes.
can rise through. How do you deal with this gap in the interim where these young people are not just in Nairobi, in any of the other 46 counties who are trying to step into that political space And we can see the clamor and the hunger for these younger leaders. But we lack the kind of political development path for these younger people. What are the options? What, in light of history? Because I would want to wager that this is not the first time we found ourselves in this kind of a space in terms of political development for youth.
Mr. Gola, ask yourself this question. What is the main problem now facing Kenya? What is it? Is it politics? Is it economic? What is the main problem facing Kenya at the moment? In my view, the main problem that is facing the country is poverty. The country is doing very badly economically.
Yeah, that's true.
There is no money in the country. Families are not able to look after themselves in a decent manner. Our hospitals are in a chaos. Our universities are in a chaos. The general quality of life has declined immensely. What I would have expected the leadership to do is to concentrate on improving the economy. When the young people complain, one of the main reasons or the main problems facing them is unemployment, is poverty. And I believe that His Excellency the President and his government should spend more time in addressing the issue of poverty in the country. The country has gone down immensely. This may not necessarily be because of the governance. As you know, the whole world is going through a difficult time with the war in Ukraine, and I not expected leadership now in Western Europe and America and etc. and so on. The whole world has got problems. But I think that we should not be spending so much of our time on politicking. We should probably buy a leaf from Mwai Kibaki. When he took over the country, there was nothing in the treasury. But Mwai Kibaki spent most of his time trying to see how he could improve the economy. And he did so towards the end. He was able to put money in people's pockets. We may also learn a lesson from Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. During the time he was president, he never left the country. He spent most of the time in the country. And there was a story, which was true, that at about 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. at night, in the middle of night, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta would be telephoning his cabinet ministers, asking them questions of what was happening in a ministry and so on. And it came to a stage when some of the ministers would carry some files to their own homes, so that if Mzee phoned them at night, they would be able to talk to him intelligently to show that things are moving very well. But now what is going on in Kenya is that all the time we are politicking. People are moving, those who are our leaders are moving around. You hear that they are in Western Kenya. You hear that they are moving to Nyanza. You hear that they are going to Kisii. You hear now they want to visit the mountain, and etc. Is this kind of conduct really necessary? In my view, it is not. The president and his government should concentrate more on addressing economic issues facing people. And we take care of the young generation, the problems they are facing. A majority of them are not employed at all. Majority of them cannot afford a meal at all. They are going through a very, very difficult time. Majority of them are not able to pay fees at universities or in schools and so on. We need to address the issues facing the young people through economic development, so that you can be able to attend to the economic issues or the financial issues that are facing them. Instead of emphasizing elections and what will happen in 2027 and so on. And that's why I think that it may not be a bad idea if our current president is allowed to serve up to 2027, but let him in 2027 decline the invitation to vie for presidency. He will emerge as a great leader, not only in this country, but in Africa and in the world. Let him put the economy on the best footing that he can, which is now chaotic. Because when you're reading people, what they're more interested in, they're not interested in the politics of the country. They're not interested in who is to be the leader in the country. What they are interested in are day-to-day things. Are we eating well? Are the children going to school? Are we living in a good accommodation? Those are the things that ordinary people are interested in. They're not interested in who is to be the most powerful person politically in the country at all. And this, I would say that this is the message. If I was an advisor to President Ruto, I would tell him that, Your Excellency, forget about visiting Mount Kenya. Forget about going to Western Kenya. Forget about going to Kisii or the coast and so on. Sit down with your economists, try to see how you can improve the economy of Kenya so that the people can have some money in their pockets and they can enjoy life.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's a critical element, especially where we are right now. Household income, employment rates in the country, the cost of living is untenable for many people.
Let me tell you something that you may not be feeling it yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling it. When it comes about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock onwards, you receive a lot of phone calls on your telephone. And the people are not asking for much money. They want some 200 shillings, 300 shillings.
For dinner.
500 shillings. And most of them, when you tell them they don't have money, they don't believe you. They think that you are being mean and so on. So these are the real problems that people are facing in the country. They do not have proper livelihood at all. And the government and the president should actually devote most of their time on making sure that things are being done properly to generate the economy. There's something else that I may mention to you. For reasons I don't understand, some people have now waged war against the judiciary.
Yeah, that's true.
They want the Supreme Court judges to go. They want some other judges to go. Then our judges may have some problems. But I'm not very sure that you should now go out that you want to wipe out the whole judiciary and you bring in more new people. Because in doing so, you're creating more problems. You're creating chaos in the country.
That's true.
We do not need this kind of chaos at all. Let us give Mother Kome support so that she can be able to continue to do good work in the country. She may have her own shortcomings, but you can always talk to her in private and tell her that your leadership, you have got these shortcomings. Could you try to improve on them? But going all out, attacking her the way we are doing now, is uncalled for. Completely uncalled for. And for a long time, the judiciary has been the one that has saved this country, has united this country, has made it what it is. If we remove the judiciary, the country can easily collapse. We can easily find ourselves in big problems which we are not able to handle at all. Let us continue to respect those who are our judges, and let us continue to work together as a team so that we may make a mark in Kenya.
Yeah, and an interesting build up on that is the fact that the public service of which you were part of in the first government, what we are seeing right now, some of the challenges that end up in the household of a lot of Kenyans is challenges to do with the changes in our education system and the university funding model plus the CBC. We are seeing challenges with healthcare, especially the public healthcare insurance,
Yes.
SHA. We are seeing we almost have a dozen agricultural bills in Parliament right now, many of them that are not favorable to Mwananchi, or at least how the majority of Mwananchi farm in this country, which is their small plots back at home. And on, we see this onslaught from both politicians, but also from the public service elements, the policy side of it, that are not favorable to a flourishing nation. How much of this evolution in the kind of public service that we have, what have been the changes over the years that has led us to this space where you have a public service that is almost hostile to the flourishing of the average Kenyan?
Again, I'm happy that you raised that question. We have had a development in Kenya where certain individuals who are in the public service, for some reasons that are not understandable, do not speak at all. They do not say anything at all. They are in a very highly placed position. One would expect them to talk and say what improvements they think should be carried out to ordinary people, and to say certain things which they think they should not be done to ordinary people at all. But these people, for some reason that one doesn't understand, do not say anything at all. If you take, for instance, during Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's era, we had Attorney General, although he was excessive. This is Charles Njonjo. He used to do a lot of talking, and in some ways, he maintained some measure of decency through talking. At the moment, we don't have people who do much talking who are in public service at all. And the Parliament doesn't seem to be really as active, playing as an active role as it should be doing at all. This may probably explain why now we have certain things happening which are very unpleasant, because certain institutions that should be functioning are not functioning at all. And yet you would like these institutions to function. And if they are functioning properly, they would probably come up with ideas of how to take care of the young people, the youth, and so on. Now, there's something, Mr. Ogola, which you may wish to know.
Mm-hmm.
You run a government because you have got ideas.
That's true.
If you don't have ideas, you cannot run a government. You cannot make progress at all. You need people who have got ideas of what they think, the way things should be done, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
The question we may ask ourselves, what ideas do these our people who are now in power have about development in the country, in Kenya? What ideas do they have to make sure that we have a better society, a better community in Kenya? And what ideas should we encourage them to make Kenya a leading country in Africa and in the world? We had, actually to some extent, made a good name in the past. People respected Kenya very much, and people thought Kenya was a role model. We have some other countries now which are overtaking us. Countries like Botswana, countries like South Africa, countries like Ghana, they are now overtaking us. What has gone wrong? What mistakes have we done? And the answer is, have we got the best crop of politicians in the country? The answer is, to some extent, no. We need proper crop of politicians who can actually improve the country. But we shall then have to wait until 2027, when it comes to voting, that we tell certain people and tell them, look, so-and-so, you're not fit to continue to be an MCA. so and so is not fit to continue to be an MP. So and so should not continue to be a senator. Let us use the voting power well, so that you have got a proper crop of politicians who can propel Kenya and make Kenya a great country. Currently, we do not seem to have such a crop of politicians at all.
Yes. And Senior, just as a build-up to that, two questions. One is clarity. There's a question. We are seeing what the young continue to do. We saw it in Kisii, where they stood up in the stadium and left. We saw it in Nyayo Stadium the other day, where they literally said, they were chanting against the government. All these sort of public expression of disapproval of the regime. And you've represented some of them, and some of them still have pending cases around that. Do you consider that as part of a viable model of political expression? And especially in light of how the regime and certain apparatus of power have reacted with abductions, with disappearances, with murder, with intimidation. But then also the other side of it is, if this momentum stays up to 2027, what is your vision of this, where this will go in light of all the possible scenarios we have? Where do you think we'll go with this, 2027 to 2032?
No, there are many parts with the young people.
Mm-hmm.
I may be of the old school. Let us respect a person who's in power. He may be making mistakes. We can point out to him the mistakes he is making without throwing stones at him, without insulting him, by sheer just reasoning, talking and telling him that, look, what you are doing is wrong. The way we do in courts. You understand me? For instance, when we urge the court to make an order that abduction cases should be investigated by ICC, we gave reasons. One of the reasons we gave is that the police doesn't seem to enjoy the command and the confidence of the people at all. People seem to think the police were, knew what was happening and so on. They did not take the right steps and so on. Yeah, so my view is that a person who is in power, give him the respect that he deserves. Even if you have some views, some ideas that you think that he is making mistakes, grave mistakes, but don't shout him down. Let him say what he wants to say. Don't abuse him. Don't throw stones at him. Give him respect. But you are doing so not because of himself or yourself, but you are doing so for greater society. You want to make sure that there is no breakdown of law and order. You want to make sure that you avoid people being harmed, being assaulted, and what and so on. You can still argue a case very nicely without abuses, without showing disrespect, and so on, to those who are in power. But I'm saying to you that those who are in power, when they notice that they are losing favor, they are losing confidence of the people, they should go out and resign on their own. They should not wait for someone to tell them to resign. They should resign on their own. Say that I'm not going to continue. I think so and so should now, I have had enough of it. Let somebody else do it. Or, as I've said to you, it may not be a bad idea if our current president, come 2027, he says, look, I'm not going to stand. But he devotes now most of his time on improving Kenya and making Kenya a great country economically.
Okay. Yeah, and just that build up, what do you see, how, in light of all the possible scenarios, this shaping up over the next, let's say, the next decade for young people, basically across the civic public?
That's what my worry is that if we do not sort out the economic problems, we could have bigger problems. The main problem we have now, in my view, is economic.
Mm-hmm.
People are suffering.
Yeah.
Now, if you live in Nairobi yourself,
I do.
Yeah, if you are a kind of person who's lucky and God has blessed you with some 8 children or 10 children, and you are earning something like 20,000 shillings or 15,000 shillings, you may not be able to give the children food at all.
Yeah,
The country is in tatters, the economy is in tatters, and all of us need to address our minds on how we can improve the economy so that people can lead decent lives. But when people, you have empty stomachs and so on, they can come and do some ridiculous things that will embarrass all of us and say to ourselves, should this really happen in Kenya? Let us see how we can improve the economic standing, economic well-being of our people. That's the most important thing. If we don't do it, it can cause us problems in the future.
So my follow-up to that would be, for the young people out there, what's your advice to them?
My advice to them is that let us give those people in power opportunity to see what they can do to improve the economy of the country. And let them not be choosy in whatever they get. You may have gone through university and got a degree, but if you are offered a job now to go and cut grass, take it so that you can be able to maintain yourself. Don't be choosy. Don't say to yourself, look, I got so much education, I should not be doing such and such a thing at all. Do take whatever you are given to make sure that you're able to earn a livelihood and so on.
Right.
And those who are in authority, in power and so on, I would say to them that, look, let them see what they can do. I don't know whether you've moved in the Kilimani area.
Yes, I know the neighborhood.
You know Kilimani area?
Yes.
There is something I've seen which is very embarrassing to us. Mr. Ogola, you may not have noted it, but I have noticed it. Have you noticed that by the roadside, there are so many women just sitting there? And I understand a number of these women are looking for someone to offer them a job. They sit there from morning to evening. Who can now do something for them? Who should make sure that these women are engaged, they have got some jobs, they are busy and so on? It's the government.
True.
To do something for them. There are many of them in this Kilimani area, just standing by the roadside. They don't have anything to do at all. They are seated there from morning to evening. At 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock when I'm coming to the office, I see them seated there. They have nothing to do at all. Obviously, they are going through a very difficult time economically. Who can do something for them? The MCS should be talking about this. Members of Parliament should be talking about this. Government officials should be talking about this. And even His Excellency the President himself should be talking about this to see how we can improve the economy of the country so that the people have got some money in their pockets and they can lead decent lives. I do, of course, acknowledge one thing, that some of the economic problems we are having they are not due to our own shortcomings at all. They are due to broader problems that the whole world is facing, like just as I mentioned here about Ukraine and so on. But still, we can do better. Let us do better. Instead of just roaming about the whole country, instead of sitting down, addressing the economic issues, trying to see what can happen. And let us continue to respect our institutions, like the judiciary. The judges are working under very difficult times. They have got so many cases they are hearing and so on. And they are doing so under very difficult circumstances. The judiciary is not well defined, it doesn't have sufficient funds at all. But they are doing the best they can. Let us not go about abusing them and doing what and so on at all.
Yeah. Senior Counsel, Dr. John Khaminwa, always a pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.